Paramhansa Yogananda said, I am not the guru. God is the true guru. He also wrote, I want you, God, that I may give you to all. I want your everlasting happiness, only that I may share it with others, that I may show all my brothers the way to happiness forever and forever in you. And another question in our case is, what about when the guru is no longer in the body? Swami Kriyananda once said to Yoganandaji, Sir, after you are gone, will you be as close to us as you are now? And he replied, to those who think me near, I will be near. This is an important principle, not just for followers of Yogananda. Yogananda Ji touched many souls during his lifetime. He gave Kriya initiation to tens of thousands of people. But he's reaching many times that in the decades after his passing, through his writing, through disciples of disciples, and in unseen way, his magnetism is producing day-to-day miracles that are transforming people's lives. Today, we're having a beginning meditation class in this room. And every time we have a new batch of students, they come with stories of miracles that have occurred to them, that have guided them to come in this door. In the 1980s, some decades after Yogananda's passing, a friend of mine had her mother come to visit her at Ananda Village in California. And one day the mother went out for a walk at Ananda Village. And when she came back, she said to her daughter, I had a very interesting conversation with someone I met. This man seemed Indian. He had an accent, and he had long black hair, and he was wearing orange robes. And perhaps you know him. And he said to me that he was very pleased with how Ananda was growing and expanding. And I asked him, oh, do you come here often? And he replied, I am always here. And then the daughter showed her mother a photo of Yogananda. And the mother said, yes, that was him. That was the man I met. So many little things guide us along the way. To those who think me near, I will be near. And that doesn't mean that if we don't think he's near, he won't be near. He says, I'm always here. He told one disciple, even when you're alone, am I not always with you? He's always near, but we need to do something if we want to feel him near. To benefit from what the Guru has given, we need to practice his teachings, surround ourselves with his vibrations, read the book, sing the music, absorb his words. And of those, and in this way, absorb the words of the Guru, absorb the words of those who have dedicated their lives to him. Yogananda Ji is called the Prem Avatar, and it was always very easy for me to love his sweetness and his love and devotion. With Swami Sri Yukteswar, personally, it was a little different. At first, I just knew about how he was very strict with his disciples and had strict discipline. And at that time, in the early 1970s, we had just two books that had been published, two books of any length that had been published to do with our Guru's teachings. And one was the Autobiography of a Yogi. The other was Swamiji's book, The Art and Science of Raja Yoga. And then there was just a couple of little books. And one of those little books was Sri Yukteswar's Holy Science. And so as a disciple, I had to read it. And when I did, I had a greater knowledge of Sri Yukteswar, but it's not like I warmed up to him anymore. And gradually I learned of his human side, how he had been a wealthy landlord and had farms and orchards, and he was loved and respected by his friends and neighbors. And he had a family, and he and his wife raised a daughter and saw her marry. And then later I met Yogananda's nephew, Hari Krishna Ghosh. And Hari Krishna knew Sri Yukteswar well. And Sri Yukteswar would visit the family home, and with the children, he was just very kind and loving and playful. He'd bring candies and chocolates, but he'd treat also the children seriously and listen to them as equals. And all of this made a big impression on Hare Krishna as a child. But for me, my personal reconciliation with Sri Yukteswar happened when we started taking pilgrimages to his hermitage in Serampore, to his hermitage in Puri. And I felt when we sat to meditate such a deep stillness and such a deep calmness that I have never felt anywhere else in that way. And as soon as we walked in, we could feel that deep calmness. And it made me realize the true depth of Sri Yukteswar and what he has to give us. Yogananda had been with Sri Yukteswar for just a few months when Yogananda ji abruptly left the ashram and left all of his ashram duties. And then when he returned many days later, Sri Yukteswar greeted him and he said, "Let's go to the kitchen and find something to eat." Sri Yukteswar's manner was as natural as if hours and not days had separated us. He said, "Of course I'm not angry with you. Anger springs only from thwarted desire. I do not expect anything from others, so their actions cannot be in opposition to wishes of mine. I would not use you for my own ends. I am happy only in your own true happiness. This is how the Guru works."
Also today we're speaking on the topic of intellectual knowledge versus spiritual insight. And the Bible phrases that go along with this weekly commentary by Swami Kriyananda talks about the story in the Bible where the priests and the scribes, they're always nitpicking and going after Jesus. And at one point they said, "Look at your disciples. They're not even washing their hands before they eat," because at one point they were in the field and they ate some grain and they didn't wash their hands. And he said, don't your disciples, and don't you tell your disciples to go by the traditions of our religion. And Jesus really rebuked them and said, what does it matter what goes, let's see. It's not what goes into a man's mouth that matters, it's what comes out of a man's mouth that matters. And, what comes out is very telling of a person's consciousness. Are they loving? Are they kind? Are they giving? Are they supportive of others? Or are they selfish? Are they greedy? Are they angry? So this is the kind of consciousness that comes out of our mouth. And Jesus's biggest argument was that they were being so intellectually nitpicky about the lesser rules of the religion and not the main point of religion, which is, don't worry about cleaning your hands, worry about cleaning your heart, cleansing your heart of impure thoughts, of impure desires. That's really the point here. And so time and again in the Bible, Jesus is correcting the scribes and the priests, which is why in the end they killed him. But when you think of also in all religions, you have these intellectual nitpickers that are studying the scriptures, maybe memorizing the scriptures and telling and sticking to the rituals only, but have no pure love in their hearts. The great Saint Ananda Ma, she was illiterate, and yet she was in communion with God all the time. And all one of the priests needed to do was read a section of a scripture to her, and she would tell them what it meant. And one time, there's a story of Yogananda ji when he was opening his school in Ranchi, and the Maharaja of Kazimpur, who owned land that he was considering giving land to Yogananda for his school, brought in a bunch of pundits that were quizzing him and asking him all these questions. And Yogananda said these pundits were in the mood for a spiritual bullfight. And so Yogananda said, my realization doesn't come from reading. My realization comes from inside. What I have realized I can talk about. And in the scriptures, they talk about 4 aspects of the mind: mon, buddhi, ahankara, and chitta. But they don't say, and it says there is a counterpart in the body, but they don't say where it is. And so he presents to them, where is that in the body? And since they had no spiritual experience of their own, they couldn't answer the question, so he told them. And so, it's not so much what we read and what we study and what we memorize, it's what we're experiencing inside. The great Saint Teresa of Avila of Spain from the 16th century said that one moment of spiritual experience, of communion with God, will bring us greater spiritual growth than years and years of study, even studying the scriptures or reading. And I know that on my own path, I think I spent about 15 years reading all different kinds of books on all different kinds of paths. And I have this, restless mind that is always trying to seek out ways to be stimulated and feel like I'm learning something. But I realized when I finally found Ananda and started meditating, that in 15 years I'd just been spinning around the surface and I had never really gone deep. So that is a warning on the spiritual path, because it feels good to read all these things, because we are reading truths. And scriptures are great, but if we're not realizing them within ourselves, it's not really helping us to change. The scriptures, and you think of even within Hinduism, we have, like, we should do this puja, we should say these Sanskrit mantras, we should do all these things, and it will purify us. But yes, we need to be purified, and even you must take a shower before you meditate or go to the temple or go to the puja room. What we need to purify is our hearts. And rituals can be, maybe the Muslims are praying 5 times a day, and the Catholics are going to communion every week. And, and even here we're going to puja every week. But the point of these rituals can be fantastic if they uplift our consciousness and bring us inside to our calm center. But if they're not uplifting us and helping us have communion with God, we're sort of missing the point. And if you remember, one of Patanjali's aphorisms is that one of the dangers is that we miss the point. The rituals are fine, but the point is to be uplifted. even in meditation, we learn all these techniques, and they are wonderful techniques. But if we just stick with the techniques and don't go beyond them to communion with the Lord and to communion with the consciousness of our Guru, then we have sort of, it's like driving to the beach, but not getting out of the car and experiencing the sea. The point is the experience of the sea. The point is communion with God. And so one moment in the company of a saint can be our raft over the ocean of delusion. I think Keshava just said that. So why is that? Because one moment of an uplifted superconscious vibration can change our ego, can change our limiting self-definitions and help us remember who we truly are. Because the spiritual path and meditation and all the different things we do are basically to help us let go, to sort of unlearn all these definitions and limitations that we put on ourselves. Gender, religion, nationality, all these things that we think that we are. And if we look in the mirror, we think, yep, that's who I am. But in meditation, we just unlearn and we peel the onion and we start to come closer and closer to the true self, the truth self, and realizing the self is the point of the spiritual path. Yogananda ji said that Kriya Yoga is the airplane route to God. And again, it's the airplane route to God if we follow the steps of what he's told us. You know, human beings have the nervous system, between rocks and animals and plants and humans. Humans are the only ones that have the nervous system that can realize this oneness with God and achieve moksha. But if we don't if we don't follow the path, it's like we tense with will. We're always tense, actually. Our minds are restless. We're tense with our jobs, with our families, with our responsibilities, with what we think we should do. And yet, relaxation. Relax and feel. This is the path. Tense with will. Relax and feel. We need to be able to feel the prana flowing through us. That's why Yogananda brought us the energization exercises. Can you feel the energy flowing? If you can feel that energy flowing, bring it into your center. And from your center, bring it up to the spiritual eye and tell us, or ask yourself, can you feel the energy flow? Can you feel energy here at the spiritual eye? Try to feel energy at the spiritual eye. If you are feeling energy at the spiritual eye, you have brought energy there. That is the experience. And more, if we practice that every day, then we reverse that flow and we start to live in our center. Yogananda said, divine vision is center everywhere, circumference nowhere. So these self-limiting definitions that we put on ourselves, that we are creating our own circumference. And so we want to get rid of that and live in our center everywhere. And how can Ananda and Moima know everything? How can Yogananda converse with physicians in the physician's language, having never studied any medical books? Center everywhere. Can be the center of everything. He also taught us that's how we receive understanding with every relationship, every work problem, every family problem. Be in your center and commune with the center of others. Commune with the center of the problem. From that center, we can do anything. Yesterday we had a yoga class here with Jayadev from Assisi, and one of the main things that we did was go into a yogasana, and we would feel the prana moving to each side of the body wherever the stretch was, and then when we'd come back, he'd say, now do you feel the energy in the spine? Do you feel it? And don't think this is what I should feel, or this is what the textbooks say is happening. Do you feel it or not? And so it really made us tune in, like, yeah. And he said, there's a difference between imagination and reality. So within your own self, try to feel that energy flow. And Swami Kriyananda said that if we can be in a awake, alert state and be totally relaxed, our energy will automatically flow towards God. So the spiritual path is one of ever increased relaxation. It's also what we teach in meditation. Spine straight, get still, draw your energy in, and relax with an alert mind. And suddenly our consciousness will flow upward. Excuse me one. Yogananda says, a chronic wanderer in the path of theology seldom tastes even a sip of pure divine water of truth. He craves only newly flavored ideational concoctions. This desire for untried novelties merely leads one into a desert track of intellectual doubts. The God-thirsty seeker busies himself with imbibing the nectar of absolute infinite bliss. And on the spiritual path, we do have this constant battle within us. And we learn this in meditation, and Yogananda's teachings are that if our energy is flowing outward from our calm center, our mind will be restless and we will have tension. If we can bring that energy back into our calm center, then the battle becomes between the lower chakras and the higher chakras, the ego self or the divine self. So this battle between the ego and the soul is constant, and it happens every single moment, that we are lifting our consciousness and trying not to become caught up in my own security or my own happiness and trying to protect those definitions that I've made for myself. So that is the battle of life, and it's what we're battling every day. And Swami Kriyananda says, man finds himself forever mentally divided. On deep levels, his soul whispers, return to stillness where you belong. Return to the bliss of your own being. Ignoring this inner call, however, he allows himself to be drawn out of himself by the noise and excitement of the world. So every master emphasizes commune with God. Somebody asked Jesus, what is the greatest commandment? He said, love the Lord with all your heart, with all your mind, with all your soul, with all your strength. And the second is as great as the first. Love your neighbor as yourself. Because if we love God with all our heart, what other desires do we have that can be thwarted and cause us anger? We just want God. With all our mind, bringing our awareness to the spiritual eye and expanding it in God, communion with Him. With all our soul and all our strength, with our energy. And if we are loving God with all our heart, mind, soul, and strength, then what comes out of our mouth? We will love our neighbors automatically, because we will understand that they are really our own true self. There is no separation. We are all one in God. So let's just move beyond the intellectual nitpicking and perhaps the rituals that are not uplifting us and giving us what we really want. And use the true fire rite, the true inner ritual of meditation, of God communion, of drawing our energy upward, attuning ourselves to the Lord. God bless you.